can someone help me? Well, I didn't expect that. Preschool shows. We all watch them. That's what we're gonna talk about today. Now, the shows I watched were from like the 2010s, 2013 to 2019. Yes, I'm a Gen Alpha. I'm so in the wrong generation. Now, before I show you this show, I gotta tell you, this is the first ever thing I ever watched. The first thing I ever watched ever, Now, this is the first thing I ever watched in the history of ever before, like, The Wizard of Oz, What the show is about Steamboat Willie, Donald Duck, Minnie Mouse, Daisy, and Goofy having a fun time. I do remember some episodes, like the first one with Daisy as, like, Bo Peep from Toy Story, and the final episodes with, like, Mickey and his gang as superheroes, and Mortimer Mouse from the 30s short, and he's a ducking little snitch, and he gets revolved at the end, I think I remember this one episode where Donald and Daisy were golfing, and Donald was just losing, and Daisy was doing a lot better. She was cooking. Here's my evidence for that episode even airing. I don't really like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse now, simply because it's kiddie, which kind of reminds me of Dogman Big Jim Begins. The only thing that I liked about that book was Disco Grandpa. Also, in this show, I really loved Donald Duck. Even so, I got a little toy of him when I was like 3. And this channel is also based on Donald Duck. So yeah, Donald Duck is the holy grail of my channel and stuff. And I do know Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is a 2006 show, but I started watching in like 2014, so that's why I put it in here. But anyway, here's the next show. It's another Disney Junior show, and the show is Doc McStuffins. This show is about a doctor named Doc McStuffins that would help toys whenever they're having any problems. I remembered one time watching this show at like some game or something with this guy. So my mom gets to her seats, and I'm like, what? Continue to my show, and he's like, hey, what are you watching? And I'm like, I'm watching Doc McStuffins. Then he's like, oh, that's cool. To me, he was a fun guy. I really liked him. The time that I stopped watching Doc McStuffins was at like the last 2 episodes of season 4 and the entirety of season 5 because to me, it felt like a different show. Okay, for this next one, it's probably the most beloved one. And it's I remember watching this show in 2019 and loving it. I loved the visuals. They were nice, they were pretty, they were so good. Also, a lot of people like the show that are a bit older. So here's just a few examples.
The characters have so much personality, and the comedic timing is something I've never seen before in a preschool show. The animation is super cute, and the Australian acting just sends the cuteness factor into overload.
All jokes aside, this show captivated me after only a few episodes, and I watched the entire thing with a giddy smile on my face.
There's not really much people that generally hate the show. And also, I have a lot of favorites. But if I talked about all my favorite episodes, this would be like 30 minutes, and that's not really my cup of tea time for videos. So here are my favorites just from season 1. My favorites are Shadowlands, Markets, The Adventure, my second favorite, asparagus, and my absolute favorite of season 1, camping. This episode is basically about Bluey meeting this French dog called Jean-Luc. And they play together and do little things like build a house out of sticks, plant a tree, and even defeat a wild pig. But Jean-Luc has to leave. But then, in the future, the tree is finally planted, and Bluey meets Jean-Luc. And the episode ends. This episode to me had a lot of heart and effort behind it. I really loved it. And one character I really would like to mention is Bandit. He's like the funniest character in the show, and I love it.
Dad, where are we going?
To the zoo. I'm going to sell you to the monkey house.
And just look at that smug face he does. So overall, my thoughts about Bluey are, it's very heartwarming and one of the best preschool shows I ever seen. But now we're going to talk about the worst preschool show I ever seen. And it's CoComelon. I'm just kidding, I'm not psychotic. I never watched CoComelon in my life. It is contending for the worst show of all time, though. But it's not my childhood. The show I actually meant was Paw Patrol will be there on the double. Paw Patrol. I just don't seem to like this show anymore. My parents said I used to love this show as a kid, and one time me and my mom went to a restaurant. So we got there, my mom ordered some stuff, and we went to our seats. Until my mom was blabbering about Paw Patrol, and I'm like, stop talking about Paw Patrol, it's embarrassing me. But she keeps talking about it, and I'm like, stop, stop, stop! And then she says, we're in public! And I feel embarrassed myself. So she paid our stuff and we left. That might sound extremely insane, but that was like a year ago when I needed to.
Stop it. Get some help.
The only memory with Paw Patrol I remembered was back in 2017. For Halloween, I dressed up as Marshall, the dog from Paw Patrol. The only other memories I have with Paw Patrol is like playing with the toys, which leads me to why I don't really like this show. It's basically just made for merchandise. So with the colorful animation and the merchandise, it attracted many kids. So it eventually got me into it. I did later see the feature film of Paw Patrol later in 2023 on Spectrum. And in my opinion, it's okay. Not the best, but okay. I watched it because I wanted to see if it was better than the show, or at least okay. But right now, I'm done with talking about Paw Patrol, and now we're gonna talk about Daniel Tiger. Despite me never even remembering watching this show, I have a bit of history with it. I used to draw stuff on this Daniel Tiger app back in late 2018, early 2019. So here are just a few of the drawings just to embarrass me. Well, that was a trip. Looking at a lot of these drawings, they look very, very cursed. Just look at Ariel's arms. And those do not look like seashells. They look like something else. I am not trying to offend anyone who is watching this video. This quote is by Duckman. And this one looks straight out of my nightmares. So here's the last memory about Daniel Tiger. So do you remember my pet fish, Daniel? The fish I made a video about on my mom's YouTube channel over 2 years ago? And if you don't know him, Daniel is a blue betta fish I got at Petco on November 6, 2022. And while I was there, I wanted to give my pet fish a name. So I told my mom I wanted to name it Daniel. But then she was like, "Did you name it after Daniel Tiger?" Then I said no. And that's basically it. Yeah, what I meant by I have a bit of history with Daniel, I only meant like barely anything. I just don't really remember anything else about the show at all. And speaking of my pet fish, I might do a video about him someday. And now for these next shows, they're all about numbers. I know, crazy. 3 number shows in one childhood. And the first number show I ever watched was Charlie and the Numbers. I was very obsessed with the theme song when I was little. I would be up against the TV watching it. I would literally scream with joy watching this show. And when I was little, I thought the song was very catchy to me. But then 2019 rolls by, and I moved from my apartment with my mom and dad, and I moved to my grandma's house. And then I watched 2 number preschool shows. And those shows are NumberBlocks and NumberJacks. Now, first starting off with NumberJacks, I have a bit of nostalgia with this show. I used to watch this show all the time on like YouTube and stuff. And like Daniel Tiger, I had an app of NumberJacks. And I do know some of the villains, like the Puzzler, the Undertaker, and that's basically it. Also, one thing I like to mention is this show kinda looks cursed. Like, look at the NumberJacks here. I feel like they're kinda staring through me. And look at the Puzzler again. That is freaky nightmare fuel. And this show is basically about the numbers fighting off these terrifying villains in some way. And also, while I was first making this video, I remembered a number preschool show. And that show was NumberJacks, but I didn't know what it was back then. I would talk about this show with some of my schoolmates, like Lucas and some other ones. I didn't find out what it was called until I saw a video by Snap, which was a video about NumberJack 3. And looking at the thumbnail, I recognized I've watched this show before. And I have proof of watching this show. Here's a screenshot from July 5th, 2019. So overall, NumberJacks is a decent show I fondly remembered liking as a kid. But now we're going to talk about my favorite of the number shows, NumberBlocks. This has to be the show I learned the most from. Like, I learned all of these basic math formulas just from this show. I just love it so much. I learned a lot of things about math because of this show. Like, for example, in the episode The Sign of the Times, no, not the Harry Styles song, though I do think it's pretty sick. Just stop your crying, it's the sign of the times. So anyway, the episode starts with 10 and 18 racing until they see a sign that looks like a plus sign, and they practice to add up really fast. But it takes a bit long. Then the sign turns and it looks like a times sign. and they use it to times up, and it's able to go pretty fast solving the problem. And another example, in the episode Divide and Drive, 3 basically has a go-kart area, but only 3s can ride her go-karts. And they need to divide into 3s before the numbers could drive. And these 2 episodes released the same year I watched the show, in 2019. And also in 2019, I was pretty young. I was like 5 to 6. Now let me tell you, have you ever learned about what times and dividing is when you're 5? No, bet not. So by then, I got to be like a genius at math until like the 4th grade. And also, I do like the characters. I like their character types. Like 4 is the square, 6 is the dice one, 7 is the rainbow one, and 8 is basically Superman. And there are some copycats of the other numbers, like 16, which is a complete ripoff of 4, but I'm fine with that. And you might be asking, what is your favorite NumberBlocks character? Well, I'll tell you that. My favorite NumberBlocks character is 17. 17 is the artist of the group. And as an artist myself, I think that's a fantastic idea for a NumberBlocks character. And also, I really like his design. I like the 7 splats of paint on him. And the use of the 7 on him is really creative. Also, it's literally been 17 minutes. But now, let's talk about my favorite episode I really liked as a kid. And the episode is Ride the Rays. This episode basically is about the NumberBlocks riding rays and stuff. Yeah, I don't really like this episode nowadays. I just think it's okay. But when I was a kid, I loved this episode. To the point I even made a game of it. Okay, I think a lot of you were confused. But anyway, back in 2020, I would have these math classes on Zoom. And I would use these blocks to help me add and subtract. And sometimes I would even play with these blocks. Yes, I was weird back then, you know. But then later that year, I decided to make a game for myself. So let me explain you how the game goes. So there are numbers in the game, and you can have any amount of them, but no duplicates. And the game has levels. You also can have any amount of levels you like. But to get to these levels, you have to get to the rays. Let me get you examples for the rays. 1 raise can be written if the number can times by 1. 2 rays can only be written if the number can times by 2, and so on and so forth. And whatever number finishes all the levels, then they are the winner. And for some reason, I really liked playing this game as a kid. I had a lot of fond memories of playing it. But enough rambling, let's talk about another episode. And that episode is 100 Ways to Leave the Planet. To me, this could honestly be a big finale. In this episode, 1 and the other numbers go to space. And 1 sends a clone of herself to Numberland, I think. And that's the episode. Honestly, despite this episode being okay at best, I think this could have been a great finale. if they all stopped here, it could have been amazing and given impact on the series. And after watching that episode, I would watch newer episodes occasionally until 2023 when I stopped watching this show. I gotta tell you, I love this show for the way it impacted my experience on math. To me as a kid, it was very hard, but after watching this show, it got a lot easier. And one other thing I need to mention is, I had an app of NumberBlocks. But unlike Daniel Tiger and NumberJacks, I had 3 freaking apps of NumberBlocks. If I had a nickel for every time I had an app of NumberBlocks, I'd have 3 nickels, which isn't that much. But it's weird that it happened 3 times, right? And that's all I have to say about NumberBlocks. I just really loved it as a kid. And finally, we're gonna get to the last preschool show, and it's Puppy Dog Pals. I have barely anything to say about this show. I only know like 2 episodes. The first episode where they go to Hawaii, and another episode where it's like a Halloween special or whatever. That's all I remember. And when I was first watching this show, it was quite new. I first watched it in 2018, and I had like toy plushies of the 2 main characters, Rolly and Bingo. And just recently, a few years ago, I asked my mother where they were. Then she told me that I donated them and I didn't want them anymore. So now I don't have them anymore. And one thing I do like about this show is that Jill Talley, the voice of Karen, plays one of the puppies in this show. But overall, I don't really care for this show nowadays. But anyway, that is all of my childhood preschool shows. But now, let's talk about some honorable mentions. Some of these shows I only watched 1 episode and I barely know about, which is why I didn't want to talk about it much in this video. And the honorable mentions are Sesame Street, Muppet Babies, Peppa Pig, Little Einsteins, and maybe Blue's Clues. Now there's this show that I also want to mention, but it isn't technically a childhood preschool show, but I'm still going to mention it. Roly Poly Oly. I first watched this show on Disney Plus. And when I first watched it, it was breezy. I liked it. It was simple. I thought it was for 7-year-olds when I first watched it, until I checked the rating, and it was for babies. So I decided not to watch it anymore. But anyway, that's it. Tell me in the comments one of your childhood preschool shows and your thoughts about it. I'd like to hear your opinions. I'm sorry that this video took long, mainly because it's the longest video on my channel so far. And I'll be uploading short films and other stuff to my channel soon. And I'll see ya later. What's that music? Oh no, it can't be! I am so cursed for this. So here's our fan art of the day. This was drawn by Ace. I'll link his channel in the description. I was originally going to put this in my Simpsons video, but I forgot to put it in. So, here is your fan art. And I'll see ya later.